When you say a drug name, have you ever second-guessed yourself? Maybe you went to YouTube and listened to a lecture by an expert and presumed they got it right, only to say the same drug name at your workplace and got laughed at or corrected? Yeah, that's frustrating. Been there, done that. I've also spelled drug names, like at my first pharmacy technician job at Rite Aid in 1997. I would say stuff like, what is GEMFIBROZIL? How do you say that? And that's embarrassing. But when you're a new technician and you don't know, you have to ask, right? And how can I forget being a hospital intern at an inpatient pharmacy in the late 90s before social media and asking one of my pharmacists a question about ABCIXimab, also known as abciximab. These things happen when we don't know how to pronounce drug names. We just do our best. We spell them, we say them wrong. Sometimes we go on YouTube, we think we've got it right, but we don't. We second guess ourselves, and it's frustrating. Whether you're a pharmacist, a pharmacy tech, a student, a professor, a voice actor in the medical space, a patient, or someone else, if you want to press the easy button on drug name pronunciations, you're listening to the right podcast series. Hi, my name is Kim Newlove, and I am the host of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. This is episode 142. You are listening to one of my drug name pronunciation episodes. I share pronunciation tips and resources in these episodes. I also have an online course for teaching drug name pronunciations. It's called Pronounce Drug Names Like a Pro, and you can find it at kimnewlove.com or go to thepharmacistvoice.com and click on the store tab. You're probably wondering, how did I become an expert at drug name pronunciations? That seems like a random thing. But here's the story. When I became a voice actor, I had to say drug names that were new to me, and I didn't know if I was getting them right until I would go to my coach or a client who gave me feedback. I felt confused by all the different pronunciations on YouTube and other resources used by voice actors, like Forvo.com, Forvo.com, Forvo.com. There's nothing wrong with that site. I love that site. But when it comes to drug name pronunciations, they're not always right. I wasted a lot of time looking for answers, and I did not feel confident with the pronunciations I found because sometimes I was wrong in spite of the amount of time I spent researching them. I knew there had to be a better way. I got curious, and I figured it out. I figured out where the reliable information was. Listen, I care about pronouncing drug names correctly, and it's not because I'm a perfectionist. It's because I want to feel confident saying drug names and less frustrated learning them. If you're the same way, you're in the right place, learning from the right person. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. I am publishing one podcast episode per month on the topic of drug name pronunciations. This new series started in February 2022. It is now April 2022, so this is the third episode in this new series. If you missed the first two episodes in the series, you're still going to understand this one. The first two episodes are episodes 134 and 138. Links are in the show notes and on your favorite podcast player, or you can go to thepharmacistvoice.com, just click on the podcast tab and search for episodes 134, 138, and this is episode 142. During these pronunciation episodes, I share at least two drug names, one generic or non-proprietary drug name, and one brand name drug. Resources are important. Pharmacists love to look up whatever we don't know, right? But knowing the right resources is key. So, I share where I found the intended pronunciations for the drug names mentioned on the podcast. Stay tuned, I'll be sure to mention those. Let's get started. I'll say the drug name, break it down into syllables, explain which syllable or syllables have the emphasis, reveal the source of the information, and put the written pronunciation in the show notes so that you can see the drug name that you heard on the podcast and use it right away. Our drug names today are Zolmitriptan and Zokinvy. Zokinvy is brand for lonafarnib, and Zolmitriptan is generic for Zomig. I'm using the term generic loosely to mean that it's the non-proprietary U.S. adopted drug name for Zomig. Zomig is trademarked. It's a brand name drug. Let's not get caught up in the terms, though. I just want you to know that the two are related. So again, Zolmitriptan is generic for Zomig. Zolmitriptan is an oral tablet used to treat acute migraine headaches in adults, not to prevent them, to treat them. It belongs to the group of medicines called triptans. There's an orally disintegrating version and an oral tablet that's meant to be swallowed. Let's break this drug name down into syllables. Zolmitriptan. There are 4 syllables in Zolmitriptan. The syllables with the emphasis are zol and trip. Zolmitriptan. Zol has the secondary emphasis, and trip has the primary emphasis. That means that I put more emphasis on the syllable trip than any other syllable in Zolmitriptan. As the syllable with the secondary emphasis, Zol gets almost as much emphasis as trip. Zolmitriptan. Can you hear the syllables as they're being emphasized? Zolmitriptan. How do I know what gets emphasized? That's a great question. I got my information from the USP Dictionary online. I'd like to take a moment to say thank you to the USP Legal Department for permission to use written pronunciations in the show notes for my podcast. Thank you. The USP Dictionary Online is a subscription-based resource. To learn more, visit usp.org and look for the USP Dictionary, also known as USAN, USAN, USAN. It stands for the United States Adopted Names. I am in the United States. We use United States adopted names here, and that's what I base the content for this podcast on. There's a link in the show notes. Check that out. The written pronunciation for Zolmitriptan is in the show notes too. Understanding where the syllables are divided is important. It's essential. And pay attention to the vowels. Vowels can be tricky. As a review, vowels are A, E, I, O, and U, but I usually include the letter Y among them too because it sounds like an E or an I or even a schwa vowel sound too. When it comes to vowels, the pronunciation guide is your friend. In summary, the USP Dictionary Online is a reliable resource for generic drug name pronunciations, and the pronunciation guide is extremely important. It's how you can tell that the I in the meh part of Zolmitriptan is a short I. It's not Zolmitriptan, it's Zolmitriptan. One last time, Zolmitriptan. One last thing that might help you out. Zolmitriptan belongs to a group of drugs that have the stem triptan. These are all anti-migraine agents, or 5-HT1 receptor agonists. To learn more about stems without having access to the USP Dictionary Online, visit the American Medical Association's website and search the keyword stems. There's a link in the show notes to a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, that'll take you to the list of stems available from the American Medical Association's website. Now, if you're not familiar with stems, what are stems? In my own words, stems group drug names into families, so they can easily be identified as belonging together. We'll talk more about stems in future episodes. For now, please know that Zolmitriptan is in the family of triptans. Our second drug name today is Zokinvy. Zokinvy is a brand name drug used to treat a rare disease that is commonly known as progeria. To learn more about Zokinvy or progeria, visit zokinvy.com. That's ZOKINVY.com. Zokinvy.com. There's a link in the show notes. If you are unfamiliar with progeria, it's a genetic disorder that causes children to age rapidly, starting in their first 2 years of life. It's also known as Benjamin Button syndrome. Watch the 2008 film The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, featuring Brad Pitt, to see why it's called Benjamin Button syndrome. Zokinvy is a 3-syllable brand name drug, and it's pretty straightforward to say. The middle syllable kin gets the emphasis. Zokinvy. Zokinvy. Now, how did I know which syllable got the emphasis? If you go to Zokinvy.com, the drug sponsor actually breaks down the pronunciation into syllables and capitalizes kin, which to me means that is the syllable with the emphasis. This is the best case scenario, the best way to find a drug name pronunciation. The company responsible for the brand name drug Zokinvy has put out into the world how they want this drug name to be pronounced. I love that. If all drug sponsors did this, we would have less confusion. As a little bonus, the generic or non-proprietary name for Zokinvy is lonafarnib. It has 4 syllables. Lonafarnib. The first syllable, lo, gets the secondary emphasis. The third syllable, far, gets the primary emphasis. When I first looked at it, I thought it should be lonafarnib. However, looking at the written pronunciation in the USP Dictionary online, I was able to see that lonafarnib is the correct pronunciation. One more time, lonafarnib. That's all I've got for today. Let's wrap this up. Pronouncing drug names is important for patient safety and for both avoiding criticism and earning trust from other healthcare professionals and clients if you're a voice actor like me. There's a lot of misinformation online, but there are ways to sound confident saying drug names and feel less frustrated learning them. The key is to use reliable sources of information so you can get it right. We all have different accents and primary languages, right? Getting it right might sound different to different people. Get it right for you so you can communicate effectively in your practice setting. Learning drug names doesn't have to be frustrating, and you will sound confident when you get it right. Thank you for listening to episode 142 of the Pharmacist's Voice podcast. Please visit thepharmacistvoice.com to read the show notes. You'll find links to the USP Dictionary online, Zokinvy, and more in those show notes. If you know someone who would like this episode, please share it with them. And subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist's Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. Thank you again for listening.